XS, Extraordinary Superior Gundam. Hey, what's up everybody? Robert184. This is part 2 of my review of the Master Grade XS Gundam. Don't forget to check out part 1 for all the plates, the manual, and about Gundam Sentinel itself. But now it's time to take a look at the parts and see it all put together, and this review is going to be a little bit unusual, and I'll explain as we go why as we go. The first thing that you're supposed to build is actually 2G cores, as they seem to want to call it. And anyway, it's basically just a core fighter, which looks sort of cool. It's not as colorful as the double Zetas, but of course, the Zeta doesn't have one at all, so in that case it's pretty good. But because you get 2, you're able to actually put one inside and treat it as a core block, while still having one out on display. A few complaints though about this. First of all, it's very open looking, but again that's needed for the transformation. But it's little things like this. These parts should be gray inside, and I've done my best to line them, but that could have been a gray part underneath with white parts on top, etc. And if you don't do that, it does come across as looking a little bit too white. But then again, they do give you a pilot, and this is able to transform somewhat. You're also able to add multiple cockpits to this by putting in the front here and just attaching this on. And then once you've done that, you have a now pretty ugly looking core fighter here. But anyway, once you can put in the wings and swing these in and pivot this whole thing down, and that's the kind of part that's going to go inside the XS Gundam. Finally, for the base itself, you're going to have a connector here that plugs into the back here. And then you'll notice down here that there's an extra little tag here, so when you put it into the action base you have to lock it in the right way, and then you can spin it around freely, which is sort of cool that you can have the core fighter blasting off while the XS Gundam is standing there looking all cool. For today's review, I'm not going to actually have the parts disassembled like I usually do, but in this case, because when you're putting everything together you actually attach it right to the action base, and there's a lot of parts that you attach on with screws. So anyway, I'm just going to show you the parts as best I can while it's on the Gundam. Now the legs look good for a couple of reasons, and the thing that I really like about them is the minimalist amount of lining that's required. You can see some back there, channels here though not quite deep enough, and on the knees, the XS has a different set of knees from the regular S Gundam, but if you put on those blue seals there as well as the blue seals over here, it looks pretty good. You also have a weapon here and the ability to post in a beam saber. And going back to the double Zeta, you do have a little bit of yellow down on the legs, but not all that much in contrast. So when you crack open the knees here, you're able to actually pull out this Incom red weapon here. And if you've played G Generations, off that goes and shoots at the enemies. And up at the top, you're able to see that there's a beam saber in there, and that can pull out, and you can actually maneuver the leg in such a way that the hand can grab it and pull it out. In terms of mobility, the leg, because there's really no front skirt, other than the knee getting in the way, the leg can come up like this, and then you can bend it down and off to the side. This weapon, if you spin it down and out of the way, you're able to bring the leg up about that much, so you're not going to get a lot of mobility off to the sides. It is sort of cool that inside of side armors, this XS Gundam has huge weapons here, and these have a fair bit of mobility as you can see here. You can spin them around and have them go in various positions, and they actually look pretty cool. The feet are somewhat unusual in that they're not in primarily white, but in terms of mobility they're able to swing forward and back, and you'll notice that this part on the back can detach itself, and side to side there's zero movement. But of course, because it's going to be up on the action base, you're probably going to have the toes pointing down most of the time anyway. The waist unit is unique to the XS Gundam compared to the S Gundam, and this is something that you're going to build right onto the base when you're putting it together, and you'll notice that there's an attachment here that we're going to put the weapon onto later. And here I've removed the armor, but you have a very traditional Gundam looking chest with very cool vents that are going to be a little bit hard to get the lining just right, and if you open up the cockpit here, although these parts want to get in the way a little bit, you're able to see 2 tiny pilots inside. And then this white armor is additional for the XS Gundam, and it sort of looks pretty cool with just small details of these white parts here, and that sort of reminds me of the double Zeta's jewel / weapon on the front of its forehead, but you're not able to open this up, you have to sort of pop it off if you want to get the cockpit open. Now the arms are very, very cool, but the first thing you're going to notice is that they have this giant propellant tank over on the side, and that can be a big problem, A, for weight, but also just for holding everything in together. But the shoulders themselves are very, very well designed, and you'll see that there's a lot of detail, white, gray parts all over the place. And you've got the line here, and this is going to look perfect with the dry decal on there. And of course, this can transform when you're putting it into the G Cruiser mode. For mobility, you've just got this part over here that doesn't want to move, and then you've got this can spin around. Again, minimal lining, but it still comes across with really well, which is good mechanical design. The elbows can bend up this much, so you can get the 180. You're also able to spin these down here. The red is a nice bit of touch here, and the hands pivot around, and they have the regular 3-finger trigger finger split. The wing units that are attached onto the top of the S and the XS Gundam, you'll notice that they have red stickers, and these red stickers will want to peel off over time. So again, that should have been a red part attached on there, which is something that was good to see with the Master Grade wing, etc. And these move around, and again, you're going to have to get the left one and the right one in just the same position if you want to have a symmetrical looking Gundam sitting there like a brick on your shelf. The booster unit on the back comes across as being primarily just a big gray block, but then again, that's not necessarily a bad thing because you're going to be looking at the front anyway. Up at the top we have the large beam cannons, and there's 4 of them, and these move independently, so you're able to position them however you want, and there's also little small white parts for detail there. And then what's going to form the cockpit of the G Cruiser, well, that's not the right word for it, but anyway, the front of the plane, or the jet if you want to call it. Here's how it looks, and a fair bit of lining is required, but it looks pretty cool, and you can put that either up or straight down, depending how you want to display it. And now here we have probably what is one of the coolest heads in all of Gundam. So the S Gundam and the XS Gundam are not different, this is the same head, but the thing that really makes this unique is the way they have these 3 parts come forward, and you don't have to do any lining or painting to get that effect. Those are actually, it's a small polycap type soft piece that you put over the white parts, but it really shows off well. So good channels for lining all over the place, and you'll notice that unlike most Gundams, this one does not have a red chin piece, which, well, of course, Turn A has something completely different. But anyway, these yellow parts here also, they're going to move because of the transformation, but you're also able to pop off this part on the top, and that just attaches on to a peg. And though it's a little bit hard to put into words, I don't know exactly why, but I really do think that that is one of the coolest and most menacing looking of all of the heads in any Gundam series. And it really does give this XS Gundam, or the S Gundam, a very unique and memorable appearance, I think. And in addition to having one of the coolest looking heads, this also has a very cool weapon, and though not quite unique because of course the Zeta Pluses have something similar and so does the S Gundam, but it's the detail that goes into this. These are plastic parts, but they end up looking like they're made out of mesh or some kind of cloth material, and the way that you can ink this barrel here, and at the end everything looks pretty sharp. These are blue stickers on here, and there should be a clear part, but I'm going to paint that, and I should get around to that. And otherwise, for moving parts, this part can move around off to the side, which is going to come into play, but otherwise, not a lot of moving parts except for this, which of course is going to attach on to the waist armor to give it that much more stability. That's a wrap for part 2, everybody, so you've already got a pretty good idea of what the XS Gundam looks like, but stay tuned for part 3 to see size comparisons, posability, and don't forget, this is Robert 184 from gundam.tk. Stay tuned for lots more reviews. This one wasn't quite the same as usual, but anyway, hope you still liked it. Let me know with a comment what you think, and as always, hit like if you do like the vids, and subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks for watching, everybody. Now, technically, I'm telling you, I am stronger.